Florida, growing manufacturing in the Sunshine State.
I'm here with Franck Saragossi, our EOS implementer and my good friend. Frank is actually operating out of Miami, so we decided to do this one on a video. And I'm really looking forward for this conversation. We wanted to do it for a very long time. It's just scheduling conflicts, things like that. But now we finally did it. Frank is working with a lot of clients in Florida, actually even in our association and SRMA. He is a great partner of SRMA and SAMA. Frank, really happy that we could actually make it happen, have you on the show, and really learn more about EOS and your journey and things like that. So how about we start with you? Just give us a little introduction about yourself, and then we're gonna dive deeper.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Pavel. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here with you. So a little bit about myself. I come from a family manufacturing background. My parents had paint factories in the Congo, and I came to university here in the U.S. after my MBA. Got a phone call from my dad, come back to the family business. So I went back to the Congo with my wife.
So you were born in the Congo?
No, I was born in France. So a little bit of a citizen of the world. I was born in France. I lived in the Congo, then South Africa, then back to the Congo. I finished high school in the Congo, the DRC as it's known today. So when I got
back then, it was just the Congo. Sorry, but I'm just so curious about it.
No, that's good. Go ahead.
Back then, it was just Congo, because I always knew it as DRC.
Yeah, no. Before that, it was actually called Zaire. Zaire was the name of it under a different leader, and then there was an uprising actually, which is how I came back. Fast forwarding.
Unfortunately, it's so common to Africa, all the uprisings. But
unfortunately, yeah, there's a lot of back and forth. So after my MBA, I got the phone call from my dad, and I started working with mom and dad. And when I got there, it was total chaos. And looking back, I wish there was a structure that enabled me to come in cleanly and help and do what now I know how to do. But that's EOS, and there was no structure. So unfortunately, the next step of that, my mother fell ill and she passed away, and my dad also passed away, and that's where I got the second highlight. Now is that I wish we had a succession plan. There was none at the time, and unfortunately, we closed the factory and sold it for assets. So came back to the U.S., started working for different international companies. So I got my leadership skills there, sort of like an entrepreneur at the time, setting up different subsidiaries in different parts of the world for multinationals. One of them was actually Pandora Jewelry. I set up the corporate office in Mexico and opened 60 stores, hired 300 people. And we did that under 3 years. So it was high growth, but it was a fantastic lesson in everything that we do at EOS. I did there, but I just didn't have a name for it, right?
Yeah.
It was something that I learned through big corporations. So that's a little bit of my journey. I came back to the U.S. After that, and decided that I was going to go back to my entrepreneurial roots and help businesses, family businesses, ideally in manufacturing, because that's a little bit my passion, to grow, to get clarity on who does what, help them really maximize what they built, and get some money out of it, hopefully, right? Get some legacy planning, get some succession planning, so that they can live the life they want to live.
Absolutely. And that's what I really like about you, Frank, that you actually did it yourself, right? You were in that kind of in the shoes of manufacturer. You built the businesses, experienced some failure, right? And you learned from that. And then EOS came to your life, and then you really, okay, now it makes sense. But you were implementing it before even realizing you were doing EOS, for example, in Pandora, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of clicked. It's almost like with me and the theory of constraints. Before I learned about theory of constraints, I think I was doing it. I just didn't have a name for it, like you said. And then when I learned about TOC, I'm like, oh, yes. So everything kind of clicked. I don't know if it's the same kind of analogy, but it,
No,
it,
it's very,
it
very
really
close.
connects.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's life has these ways of teaching you lessons, and then, you move forward in life and you look back and say, oh, that's what it's called. That's what I used to do. Now I can do it
Exactly.
better and more effectively and more efficiently to more people. That's when passion comes in, right?
Yeah. So I really still curious about Congo and or DRC. So what made your family, start a business there?
So it's a long path. So my
I
parents
bet. Yeah.
originally came from my father's side from Turkey and an island called Rhodes in the Mediterranean.
What's island?
And my
Hold on,
mother,
which island? What's it
Rhodes.
called?
It's called
Road.
Rhodes.
Is
Yeah.
it close to Cyprus somewhere there?
It's in the same general area. It changed hands a lot. It used to be part of the Italian governance, let's say. Then now it's Greek. It's a Greek
So I
island.
was just thinking, is it Greek? Okay, so it's in those
Yeah, yeah,
islands. I have lots of islands in Greece. That's right. Yep.
right. It's a Greek island. So that's on my father's side. My mother's side, also from Turkey, but by way of France. So
Mm.
my grandfather came in between the wars to Africa. At the time was the Congo, the Belgian Congo, and he was a Belgian. It was a Belgian colony, so he was a Belgian. Actually, he was an Italian citizen, but in the Congo. So my dad is Belgian,
Mhm.
and they set up businesses. Set up business in the Congo. So there was an economic opportunity, and they took it. So, like all good entrepreneurs, that's what he did. Yeah,
Nice, fascinating story.
that's how we ended up in the Congo.
Yep. Okay. Now it's Peter. So I guess you speak French too, right? If you're from France, I would assume so.
I do. I speak French and I speak a little Spanish as well.
So what brought you to Florida then? That's the place you went when you said you went to the US. Is that the
So
first place you chose? You chose to go, or there is another story to it?
yes, yeah. So not that exciting, but I came to this U.S. And went to school in Connecticut, and then I did my MBA in at St. John's. When I came back, and it was so I'm a Southern boy, right? I don't like the cold.
Yeah.
So after my MBA, I came down here to South Florida. So that's how I ended up here. I basically
Mhm.
did not like the cold.
Yeah, just the weather cold. Yeah.
Just the weather, no other
Yep.
reason, but just I figured if I was going to plant roots somewhere, I might as well plant it in the place I love to live.
So right away to Boca Raton then? That's
So actually, we lived in Miami
Mhm.
when I worked for another company called Cartier. They were still are based in Coral Gables. So I lived in Coral Gables. Then there was Hurricane Andrew that came by, and we lived through that. And ultimately, when my kids were old enough to look for schools, we decided to move to Boca, and that's
Mhm.
where.
And your kids, when they wouldn't go to school, is St. Florida or they went outside somewhere?
So my kids, they both of them went. Actually, all three of them went to school in the New York City. So one went to Parson, the other one went to Yeshiva University, and the other one went to Columbia.
Okay.
So all in the Northeast.
Yep. Is that where they stayed or they came back?
So one of them came back. My oldest one came
One out
back,
of the
and
three. 33% chance, I guess.
one of them, and I'm hoping my son will come back as well. He's working in New York City, and he also doesn't like the winter too much. So
Mm.
we'll see what happens. But right now, his two of my three kids are in New York City.
hmm And that's what I see with the younger generation nowadays, especially in Florida. They don't really see what they have, and they always think that somewhere outside of Florida is better. So they're looking for universities outside, work outside. but they don't realize what they already have. Right? I think it's the best place on earth, to tell you the truth. It's just how can we communicate it better?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's complacency. You know, I mean, when you live in paradise, you think, you know, maybe it's something better elsewhere until you realize that this is paradise.
It's paradise. Yeah. Yeah. The first time when I came to Florida, like, oh, finally I found my home because it's beautiful. And a big thing that's really, I mean, I hope part of the goal, I guess, of this podcast is to really educate. It's not just for manufacturers, people working in manufacturing, but it's also for people that are outside of manufacturing that are curious about the industry in Florida, the opportunities in Florida. And for the kids out there is, you know, there is a lot of great companies here in Florida, great opportunities for you. And then talk about even the universities we have here. They're great universities. Just
Absolutely.
you can stay here and be very successful and build wealth to yourself and your family.
You know, absolutely. You know, it used to be that we thought South Florida was a sleepy town, you know, retirees, and
Retirees, yeah.
now it's become, you know, we have strong universities. Here in Boca Raton, we have Lynn University, we have FAU, which is a huge campus, 30,000 people. We have
Amazing
entrepreneur
universities.
centers. We have IT, we have aerospace. We've really diversified, has really grown into quite a center. And I mean, just north of us, West Palm Beach has become a financial center, right? So a lot of hedge funds, a lot of there's the face of Florida is changing, and it's great to welcome a lot of people from different states here and continue to build our beautiful state.
Yeah, and it's a manufacturing landscape is amazing in Florida too. Lots of manufacturing companies, and we are growing manufacturing pretty fast. People don't recognize Florida as a manufacturing powerhouse, but we are. We actually are a powerhouse. I can proudly say that now. Have you been in the SFMA in their office? It's a nice facility over there, the university, I mean.
So you mean FAU or SFMA?
SFMA, but they had an office right in the university.
So I haven't been to their office, but yesterday was the Manufacturer of the Year award.
Oh yes, how did it go? I still didn't have a chance to ask Matt.
It was fantastic. We had so I'm a sponsor there as well as our association on the West Coast, and so I invited my clients, manufacturers. So there was 9 of us sitting at a table. There must have been 800 people.
It's growing year over year. Last year was probably about 700.
Unbelievable. It was really impressive to see the energy and all of the companies that were nominated and the finalists. Matt did a fantastic job, and
he's amazing. He's like a showman. Yeah.
And the business advisors that were there, Anna Maria and Fernando, did a great job. And it was really inspiring. And my clients that came in there, mostly family, actually all of them, family run manufacturing businesses. And actually, they came in with their teams, and it was inspiring to see what's going on in South Florida in terms of manufacturing, the diversity and the energy. It's really breathtaking.
It's amazing. It's like they call it the Oscars for manufacturers. They have a red carpet and everything. They have a show, right? It's incredible.
Yeah, it's great.
So we're actually learning from them. I mean, you're an assessor now. You're an examiner, right? So that's what we're doing. We want to bring it here. We want to make it big. Obviously, it's our first year in SRMA, Southwest Florida Manufacturing Association, but that's where we're getting the kind of the education from.
The inspiration.
Because we see how big it can be. They've been doing it for many years, so obviously.
Yeah, it's really inspiring, and I'm sure that you guys will put on a great show because you also have quite a foundation, a group, a network of manufacturing that's growing more.
Exactly, and really, year over year, and we partner with organizations. We're partnering with Lee County Economic Development, for example, great partner of us. So with them, we're doing the Manufacturer of the Year kind of process. We're just enhancing it because of our experience in manufacturing specifically. But yeah, and also we always share best practices. So for example, theory of constraint. So we are partnered with Rami Goldratt Consulting, the guys that wrote the books, The Goal. And I know Matt is bringing Rami over there too.
Amazing. I can't
Did
wait
he
to actually.
did he make
I
an announcement over there? I think he did. He might have.
I may have missed it. I actually the theory of constraint came up. I was listening to a podcast, the serial entrepreneur, and he mentioned how he uses the theory of constraints to actually grow his business. It's a fantastic podcast. But
Which podcast? Serial Entrepreneur? I'm always
uh,
looking for some good stuff to listen to.
yeah. So this is Bedside Dad, I think it's called. And I'll get I can forward you the podcast.
Yeah,
But
send me a text.
it's written by, or he was they were interviewing a guy by the name of Ryan Dice,
Mhm.
and he has now a fund, but he I think started he was involved in 17 different businesses. So he developed his own way of actually scaling, growing his companies, and a lot of it has to do with the theory of constraints and identifying where the weak points are, or the bottlenecks are,
Mhm.
and attacking each one of them one by one, and growing his business that way. So yeah, I can't wait to actually see that theory here in South Florida. Matt's going to bring it in. I can't wait to actually
Yeah, you
participate.
should go to the event. So I made the introduction, Rami Goldrat and Matt, just a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, so it's gonna be big for sure.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I can't wait to see it.
Okay, let's go back to EOS. So
Yeah,
how about tell us about EOS for those who don't know, right? I mean, you introduced me to EOS. I gotta admit. Remember our first conversation, and you had we. I think the first time we started talking to each other, we couldn't stop. Like we were going back and forth, and I was fascinated. And then you showed me this the presentation that you have about EOS, and like, wow. And then you told me you got to read one book, though. You told me Traction is the book you got to read, and I read it, and I started applying it to my life because my life is a business. You can have a business of 1, 2 people, or you can have a business of 1,000, 20,000 people. You can implement EOS, uh,
yeah.
and that's what I did. And wow, I love it. I'm still doing it every single quarter, reviewing it every week. I'm kind of making sure I'm on the right track. So
Fantastic, fantastic. Yeah. So, what is EOS? EOS really is a system of tools to help companies do three things. One is vision, traction, and health piece. So, vision is all about making sure that the leadership team understands who we are and where we're going. That's the first thing. The second is traction. Traction is all about understanding, creating that discipline, accountability, so that we can execute all parts of that vision. Third is team health. Make sure that we all collaborate, communicate well together, because oftentimes that doesn't happen. So there are specific tools to help the leadership team get aligned around the vision, understanding who does what to get to that vision, and collaborate well. And then we bring it down to the rest of the organization through a series of tools. And it is used by over 300,000 companies. So it's a proven system. It's used a lot. And they're best practices that most businesses have. Big businesses that are successful, they have a vision. They know that we
mhm.
call it a strategy, a strategic plan. But they know what they're going to do, where they're going, how they're going to get there. They have a clarity on who does what. They have an accountability chart. We call it accountability chart. Most organizations call it an org chart, but it serves the same purpose. Ours is a little bit is on steroids. It's done in a way that we have total clarity of who does what in what seat. That's another
Which is
tool
so
that most.
important, right?
I'm sorry.
It's so important to know who
Oh,
does what and what's it, and sometimes people just miss it.
absolutely. And it starts. We talk about building culture, and it's a little bit of a buzzword, but the truth of the matter is that it starts with the accountability chart, having everybody clearly understanding what they have to do. Then it comes down to core values, understanding, okay, these are the behaviors that are expected working in this company. And the combination of that and good leadership, you create your culture. But these are tools that EOS offers, and it's created, packaged in a very simple, powerful way that that has impact. And I
Mhm.
say that has impact because it's fundamentally It's changing people's behaviors to something that works. And change is never easy. Change
Change
management is one of
management.
the hardest things that any organization goes through. So as long as the leadership team and the owners or a CEO is committed to the system, it's going to work. They're going to get out of it what they want.
Yeah, and I like how you really, your accountability chart, you really explain people what's their role, and then you have this kind of framework, visionary, and on the top you have visionary,
An integrator.
integrator, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes it's going to be the same person, but then once the company switches and understand who is the vision, who's the integrator, things start really rolling. That's the way I've seen it from the high level, you know.
Yeah, and you know it's interesting because if you are a company that is on the rather small in terms of or even medium size, oftentimes that visionary and integrator is the same person. You call it a CEO, call it, but once you start getting to a point where you have more resources and more people, you realize that it's really two seats, right? If I'm in the weeds every day, running the different departments, making sure and holding people accountable, having those tough conversations, that is an integrator role. That's a COO role. That's a president role. If
Yep.
I am a person that thinks long term, big picture, has a big relationship, sees where the future is and navigates a strategy towards that, that's really a visionary goal. I'm not necessarily in the weeds. That's why I have a president or a COO. So that distinction of the different roles is important because it's liberating, right? If you are
Absolutely.
a person that is sitting in both, sometimes you're frustrated because you're not doing enough visionary work. You're not doing enough work that is strategy, that is not looking to the future, and you may be frustrated. Or if you're a integrator, or let's say a person that loves the operations day to day, you get frustrated or you don't move as fast as you could because you don't have that long-term view, that strategic view. So oftentimes there's a little bit of conflict, and once you grow understanding that that's normal, you can really grow by leaps and bounds.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of a company that's like a lot of like big company that, you know, grew where you had those two seats and who they were? Maybe a couple rather
Yeah,
famous people.
so you know you have a lot of examples in big corporate America. You know, Steve Jobs was a visionary,
I was just
and
thinking they're gonna say that.
he had a COO that ran the day-to-day business,
Yep.
right? That's the most and I forget the name of the COO, but
Was it Tim
that's
Cook or wasn't it Tim Cook? Was Tim
it
Cook?
no,
This
Jim Cook is a new is
he's the new
the
CEO, but
CEO.
was he a
He's the
COO
CEO that
before or
replaced.
no?
It was before that, yeah.
He was a COO
Um,
before, right? Or no?
he was he was COO, and he became that.
Yeah, so I was thinking about those two guys, Tim Cook and Steve Jobs, where there was a clear visionary and clear integrator.
Yeah, so and it's interesting because in that case, the COO became the CEO, right? And I guess in those big enough companies at that level, you have to be strategic as a COO, right? It's not only the visionary, but I think that those are unicorns, and not necessarily our world in South Florida manufacturing, but there are many other examples where you have that dichotomy that really makes sense and enables people to companies to grow. I'll give you an example. One of my clients, and that were fighting. We had was one person that was the owner, and says, you know, I'm the operator as well. I like to be in the weeds. I like to understand what's going on. I want to have that finger on the pulse on the of the business. And after discussing it for several months, she said, you know what, I do love to have the big relationships. I love to go to the conferences and meet the big companies and create those relationships. And I'm a great salesperson, so, and that's often the case. um, and I need somebody to take care of the day to day because I don't want to be stuck in the day to day. So it took a little bit of time for that realization to happen. And it really came through when there was a crisis. A crisis happened earlier this year, and the fact that the visionary had the time to think about the business, reorient the priorities, was actually that's what saved them.
Uh,
So that was the best example of a
yeah,
the realization that, hey, I have a specific skill set, and that's my unique ability, and if I focus 100% on that, I can serve the company better, and I don't need to be in control. I have somebody that I trust that is in control, and if I'm okay with that mentally and emotionally, you're going to be very happy.
yeah, absolutely. Fascinating story. And I know you're working with some clients even on our side. So what do you think about being involved with those manufacturing associations, the local associations? I know you obviously SFMA on your side, but we were lucky to have you too on our associations. And
Yeah.
you definitely generating some impacts for our clients. And now EOS is like, keep talking about EOS, and then I'm looking, going to my clients, and I see, oh, there is a traction book. Somebody is reading it. So I think we're spreading, spreads like wildfire right now.
Yeah,
Everybody wants a piece.
everybody. Yeah, I love working for SFMA and SRMA, simply because it really serves the manufacturing community. And it's difficult. Entrepreneurs are heroes. I keep saying that all the time because they risk every day. They
Mhm.
put the money where the mouth is, and to the extent that we can help them be successful, what a beautiful thing, right? So, and not only, and manufacturing in general has a big impact on community because they hire people.
Mhm.
And those
Yep.
people, if the company is successful, the employees are successful. And if the employees are successful, so are the families and so are the communities. So it's just a win-win-win everywhere. So I'm really excited about being able to provide some tools and some help to help really magnify their impact and grow their business, and hopefully get what they want from their business, because being an entrepreneur is tough. Being a
Yep.
manufacturer is tough, um, especially now with the current economic environment. There's a strong need for us to become even more and more efficient and grow our manufacturing base here
Mhm.
in the U.S.
Absolutely.
So to the extent that we can help that process, it's a work of the from the heart.
Yes. And I would say even efficiency is one thing, but I would say more productive. And how do you measure productivity? We actually have a productivity index, which is basically an output per employee. So simple terms, what's the output per employee in your company in terms of dollars? So let's say your revenue is X, and then you have Y amount of employees. To take the X, divide by Y, and that's your output per employee. So what we want to do is increase that output per employee in a way of improving the processes, efficiency, strategic planning, making sure we're doing the right things. We invest in the right areas to increase the output per employee. And that's what we were struggling for a very long time in the US, and especially in Florida. And now things are changing. We're starting to improve our productivity, but there is still a long way to go to get us ahead. Because I always say manufacturing of a state, a country, it's really our competitive advantage in the world. If we have more manufacturers, if our productivity is better per employee, per manufacturer, it's our competitive advantage worldwide, or in the state of Florida as a competitive advantage, because no other industry like manufacturing has the impact that manufacturing has on the economy.
Yeah, you're talking about competitiveness. You had put on a factory tour at Admin a few weeks ago,
Mhm.
and I was absolutely blown away by the Admin being additive manufacturing.
Amazing,
The
right? Was it heavy?
unbelievable.
The
And
printers
that's, yeah, that was a 3D printers and
in
through
metal,
composites,
right?
through
All kinds of
metal
stuff.
even. I was absolutely mind blowing to see how the high tech environment was brought to a factory to manufacture parts that were pretty unique. So you're right. It is this, but how do we get those people? How do we get the productivity up? Is through the people. How do we get the people upskilled? And that's what hopefully we help with EOS, is really helping them upskilling their level of management skills to be able to lead teams, to be strategic, and to have this rhythm to run great companies.
Exactly. And then that's once again, it's spreading the knowledge about manufacturing to everybody and all the constituents, right? Letting them know that manufacturing is a great career and it's not dirty anymore, right? You need to be upskilled. You need to know how to run this equipment. And then once you can be, in your case, when we can implement EOS, what I think EOS really does, it gives an organization a focus, right? Where does the business need to focus on? Because as a manager, as an executive, especially as an executive of a company, there are so many shiny things out there. Which one is the right one to focus on? EOS gives you clarity. That's the way I saw it.
Absolutely.
Even for myself, it gave me clarity because I want to do big things in my life. Because there's so much stuff. What do I do? I was already taking notes every day, what I need to do for the day. Like I had a bigger picture and what I need to do. But EOS gave me clarity. You know what I mean? It
That's
gave me like a specific targets I need
Yeah,
to do this quarter. What I need to do to achieve those targets. Because this quarter is looking for the year looking for the 3 years, and the 3 years looking for the 10 years.
exactly. You got it down. Exactly. We start with the end in mind and we say, okay, what do we need to do in order to today or next 90 days or next year in order to get there?
Yep.
It brings clarity also in, do we have the right people to enable us to grow? Do we have the right meeting rhythm so that we are constantly uh, looking at the problems, looking at the issues, looking at the opportunities, and discussing them so that we can prioritize them? Do we have the right people that can help us get to where we want to go? So all of these things, that's really human energy, right? Is what EOS does very well, is managing those human energies so that we're focused on where we want to go, what's priority, how do we solve issues, how do we keep track of what success looks like, right? How do we make sure that our processes are documented, work standards are being followed, all of these things. We have accountability, everything that is difficult to manage because we're dealing with people all the time.
Mhm.
EOS helps bring clarity and focus, as you say, and the team, so that we can really get stuff done.
Yeah. And then I also like your meetings, productive meetings, unproductive meetings. Most
Yeah,
organizations, I would fair to say, their meetings are quite unproductive because you get 1 hour of a meeting with quite a bit of people, and you're just wasting an hour of each person's time. But many times, these are type of meetings I'm kind of used to from time to time, you know. But then with EOS, you giving them clarity of the meetings or structure of the meetings. If we need to have the meetings or don't have the meetings, and what do we need to talk about those in those meetings to make sure that we are using the time of people to drive results, right, and to get to
yeah.
the goal.
100%. And it's I'll share a downfall that I had, an error that I had. I was running Bata Shoes. It's a rather large corporation, privately held in Colombia. We had a factory of 500 people, and we had 300 retail stores. And my first, in the beginning of my leadership team meetings, we had 15 people sitting at the table, and our meetings took 5 hours. What a total waste of time, right? And slowly I became aware that this is not productive, right? And that's why we have, if with EOS, doesn't matter the size of your company, it's important that your leadership team only your leadership team shows up to the meeting, right? So that's typically between 6 and 8 people maximum, right? So or accountability chart. You start on time. First, day of the week is defined, time of the day is defined. You start on time, you end on time, and you follow an agenda. And the agenda is made up of segments that make absolute sense. The first one is you get to go around the table and you sort of create that human connection bond by having a segue. Some good news personal, right? So you sort of get break down the walls and you become human. The next three parts are about reporting. You talk about the scorecard, your dashboard. I've taken numbers that give you the pulse of your business. Are we healthy or not healthy? And if we're not healthy, let's drop down the issue, see how we have to get healthy again. Then we look at our 90-day priorities. Are we on track or off track? And then we have our people headline. Hey, this is a great place to build culture. I want to give a shout out to Pavel for, showing initiative and for his behavior. That's the type of behaviors that we want to enforce. Then you go into, really going into the issue, the meat of the meeting, which is solving issues. So if our company was not healthy, why is it not healthy? What metric is off, and how do we fix that? And it just we follow a system that makes it easy for us to get through a lot of stuff efficiently, because that's the most expensive meeting of the company. You have all your top wigs sitting at a table for an hour and a half. It better be productive. So those are the things that I wish I had known when I was a little bit earlier in my career. I would have saved a lot of money for the company.
And you don't do deep also problem solving during those meetings, right? You stay focused. Many times I've seen companies where talking about a topic, there's an agenda, and then suddenly they get focused on just one problem, and they're starting to do a root cause analysis of the problem when they don't really have all the data, all the right people in this specific, and then they start going completely out of the line, and the whole meeting is kind of destroyed.
Absolutely, and actually, it's interesting because very quickly, when teams get good at this, they realize, okay, we're digging into to get to the deep, deep root cause analysis, and we don't have the data. So let's stop the conversation and let's assign somebody to get all the data that we need so that we can meet next time and have that conversation a lot more productively. So it forces discipline in how we spend our time without spinning our wheels.
Yeah, and that's what I really like about it. Like you said, it's the discipline behind.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it's not like it's rocket science. It's rather simple, but the implementation is not as simple as it should be.
Yeah, and the implementation actually relies a lot on the integrator, right? We were talking about the two roles before. What I found is that the visionaries are very creative and full of ideas, right? They're not the greatest to run meetings, because you need on the opposite side is somebody that is very process driven, very logical, very cuts through the clutter and holds people accountable. Those are the people that typically run a better meeting. So as long as you have a strong integrator to run meetings, you usually have better outcomes in terms of meeting productivity. So I mean, most of the companies that we visited together actually are family businesses, right? They're first generation, second generation that are involved in manufacturing. There's a lot of issues that how do you deal with the family dynamics? You have your brother, your sister, your aunt in the business, and how do you create a productive and growing company when in that environment? So it absolutely is something I love to do, and I'm looking to be able to have a bigger impact in South Florida as much as possible with more help.
Awesome. Yeah, you're talking about the manufacturer of the year process. So Frank, like I mentioned, Frank is one of the examiners for our manufacturer of the year process here in Southwest Florida. So thank you for that once again. But yeah, we went and looked at some companies that want to be manufacturer of the year, and we assessed their processes, which is, I think, it's a huge kind of opportunity for manufacturers to have a group of people that have many years of experience in manufacturing, to review the processes, and they're going to get an assessment. Whether they get manufacturer of the year or not, they're still going to get a ton of value. And yeah, you're right. We were visiting companies from really small size to larger, but yeah, most of them are family businesses, which is fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, and really the assessment that you do, and you bring a group of people. I mean, it's a lot of resources, 5, 6 people that are looking at a company and really analyzing from their different perspectives.
Yeah, that's the key.
That's a key, and you know, we spend quite a bit of time digging through and understanding the business model and understanding the different facets of it. And the outcome is absolutely brilliant because from a owner perspective, they get basically an assessment, an evaluation of where the gaps are. That's super valuable. So great job, thank you. It's thank you for inviting me to be part of this.
I mean, it takes time to organize all that, but I think it's a huge value and it is fun. I mean, I enjoy it myself, right?
I love it.
Just the conversations, you know, the whole process is it's a lot. It's a lot of fun, and
It is. It is.
it's a lot of value. So hoping to get it at some point as big as SFMA has it. That would be amazing.
Absolutely. There's no doubt. I mean, we have, you know, the volume of right now is maybe a little bit lower than what we have here in South Florida, but the
A
amount
little
of
bit,
impact,
yes.
a little bit,
Just a little
but
bit.
but the impact we can have is huge too, right? So, um, yeah, what you're putting on, Pavel, and what Rob's also leading is
Yeah.
fantastic. It's
Yeah,
really
you should
fantastic.
come. It's going to be end of October. I can't remember the date, but I got to send it to you. So you block it off your calendar so you can attend the industry awards ceremony where we're going to be presenting the manufacturer of the year.
I would love that.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. So what advice do you have for manufacturers as one of the closing remarks?
Closing remarks. Listen, manufacturing them. You know, the good news is that when you look at the big picture, there's a lot of wind behind our sails, right? There's a lot of policy statements that enforce and reinforce the need and the desire for Florida manufacturing as an industry to grow in Florida, right? Governor DeSantis made a statement that we want to grow. We're 10th in the nation. We want to be third in the nation. So right now we're a little bit under our weight in terms of representation because we're the third most populous state in the United States. Yet we're only 10th in terms of manufacturing. So the initiative to bring up the amount of manufacturing companies in Florida is a policy that was stated. So we have the wins in our sales to really make an impact. I think that right, and I think that manufacturers have resources through our organization, SMRA and SFMA. They have resources that are available at very low cost for them to become members. So it's a no-brainer to join these organizations that will support you. Unbelievable events that are put on, not only factory visits, which are a center of innovation from different industries. You can go to different factories and pick up some best practices that you can then apply to your organization. You have a whole bunch of educational content that is made available. You did the also constraints is one of them. There, you know,
you see,
we have AI workshops. You have everything that is lined up to make you successful if you just plug into the system. And the networking is fantastic. So lasting comment, I think, is wherever you are as a manufacturer and your objective is to grow and to become better, you can have all of that information through these associations that will help you. And it's an ecosystem for growth. So I would plug into it.
I like that. I like the song. It's an ecosystem for growth. I'm going to use it. That's a nice quote. Well, thank you, Frank. It was a pleasure as always.
Thank you.
Love to have you on the show.
Thank you, Pavel. Thank you very much. And we'll be seeing each other soon.
Absolutely.